I want to draw a kind of picture. I want to connect some dots that I think deserve to be connected and basically advance a model for where we are and what these things have to do with each other. And I'm not saying that this model is true. And undoubtedly there are places where it will be wrong or at least imprecise. Mm-hmm. But the question is the overall model more predictive of events going forward than viewing all of the pieces in isolation, right? That, in some sense, a number of things which we won't talk about this week, maybe we will get back to them next week, have me considering the question of how it is that most people go about thinking and reaching conclusions. And there are a lot of cases in which I'm watching people that I care about or have cared about who have reached what I consider to be utterly absurd conclusions about things. And anyway, thinking about how that happens is fascinating. So in any case, one key thing is,
and that is increasingly one of the themes that we talk about here is how did people end up in such different places, and how do we reconcile with them?
There is that, and there is also the question, which I think is in some sense it's not a native question to us, because the answer is something that has emerged in everything we've done. But the question of, well, how are you going to figure out what's true in a chaotic environment in which the facts themselves are being hotly debated and are not agreed upon, where the authorities themselves are alleged to be compromised, for example? How are you to figure out what's going on? Well, one thing that is certainly true is if somebody's got a model that's predictive, then that's a decent model. And if it's more predictive than some other model, I don't care what credentials went into that other model, or which three-letter agency is backing it, and whether in theory we should be trusting those authorities. The answer is, if it's not predictive, it's not predictive. And so anyway, the point is, we're going to talk about a model.
If it's not predictive, it's not predictive. But as you and we have also talked about here before, if you have no history of making predictions that are borne out by what turns out to unfold, then you also shouldn't be someone in whom people are putting a lot of their trust.
Right. What you do when your predictions are right, what you do when they're wrong, what happens to your model as new information arises, these things are all critical. And so anyway, maybe next week we can talk a little bit about some of the lessons of the present, which I think are instructive and kind of profound. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a model that connects up certain things that, in some sense, if you look at the news, and I don't even know what that means anymore. I don't know where it is that we're supposed to go to find out what the news is. Elon is making the argument that Twitter, in fact, is a better source. And, what kind of source is it even? It's like an endless room full of people talking about things, and you can listen in. And of course, most of what's said in any crowded room is probably of no consequence at best. But
one of the ways that Twitter differs from any of the mainstream media is that you get all the biases in one place. That you can receive, you can not only get some piece that's been written by someone with some slant, but you can also get takes on it from the left, from the right, from all over the place. But you can also get all the pieces that are written on some particular topic. Someone somewhere on Twitter is going to have posted that. And that means that it becomes more of a clearinghouse of news than anything from CNN to, frankly, I don't know that Fox is as far. I'm not even sure which one I'm doing here. I think CNN is more ideological than Fox in almost every regard at this point.
I can't speak to Fox generally. I can say that there are certain places on Fox where one does tend to hear a perspective, which frankly doesn't strike me as left or right. It strikes me as it runs counter to the official narrative, and is often predictive.
Yeah.
But, what you say, I hate to differ with you already, but what you're saying should be true of Twitter. But part of what we're fighting over is whether or not it will be true, right? Whether or not it's a place where you are allowed to post every perspective. And it hasn't been that way recently. I mean, the number of people who have highly predictive models who've been thrown off of Twitter in recent times is staggering.
Right. But that is reversing.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it is, and it isn't.
Jordan Peterson's back. Babylon Bee is back. To name but two.
Yep, and then there are a whole bunch that aren't.
One of
back,
those isn't a person, but
right. So I guess it certainly bears mention that the absurdity of the Dr. Rollergator suspension continues for no obvious reason. It's such an absurd for those who don't know it, Dr. Rollergator was an account that was satirical but posted a lot of serious stuff and was suspended. I believe the explanation was for encouraging violence, and what it had done was it had suggested that somebody slap somebody across the face with a glove, which is something that is regularly posted on Twitter by other accounts that don't get suspended. And this was 9 months ago at least, and it hasn't been restored. So in any case, it's Elon, if you're watching, go down in the Twitter dungeons and see if Dr. Rollergator isn't there and consider freeing that account.